HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Police intensifying their probe into the death of well-known businessman and pharmacist Kurt McCartney, who was gunned down 2 nights ago. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Charisma Robinson, and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition. It's always great to have you join us. So far, police have questioned a number of individuals in reference to this murder. Today, Superintendent of Police Stephen Dean gave reporters an update on the investigations as they are still looking to the public to help solve this case.
Receiving information from overwhelming information from members of the public. People have been calling in. People have been calling in with tips. We are saying to you, and we like that. We want to encourage that. As a result of some of the tips that people have been calling into, we have been following those lines of inquiries. A number of people of interest have been in and out of custody. We continue to do so. We continue to follow leads. If someone calls us and tells us they believe Peter was involved, we do follow the matter.
As family members of 43-year-old Kurt McCartney still try to come to grips with his death, police are on an all-out hunt for the perpetrators. McCartney, who's the brother of Democratic National Alliance leader Branville McCartney, was shot and killed in the Gambier Village area around 8:30 Thursday night. Superintendent of Police Stephen Dean says based on the information coming in, detectives can solve this matter.
Continuously, our detectives are on the ground picking up people as the infant. We have a number of names to follow behind, and as we find those persons, we bring them into custody. So it's around the clock, and I must tell you that our detective, we have a dedicated committed detective who are assigned to this matter, and we believe based on the lines of inquiries that we are following, we will bring this matter to successful closure. But we believe that we cannot do it without the public.
Now, if you have any information that can help police with their investigations, you are asked to contact them anonymously at the Central Detective Unit 919 or 328-TIPS.
We are asking anyone who might have been canvassing the area, who might have been riding in the area during that time, whether the information might seem insignificant. You might have seen somebody walking who is known to you. You might have seen a particular vehicle. You might have heard something. You might have heard some rumors. We are asking you to contact the police for that information. Every piece of information is very important to us at this moment.
Superintendent Dean also had these words for those responsible for McCartney's murder.
If you have been involved in this murder, whether you was in the getaway car, whether you was the lookout man, whether you was whether you was the shooter, we are asking you to please turn yourself in. We are asking you to, with immediate effect, to turn yourself in to the Central Detective Unit or to the nearest police station.
Meantime, police also need your help in solving that Palm Beach murder, which occurred just hours after McCartney's killing Thursday night. Superintendent Dean says so far no one has come forward with any information. The victim of that shooting was reportedly the target of robbers who turned violent. Police are investigating an overnight shooting that's left a man fighting for his life in hospital. The victim was reportedly standing outside of a local club on Village Road shortly after 3 this morning when a silver vehicle pulled up with several male occupants. One of them opened fire on the victim, shooting him several times about the body before the vehicle sped off. He was taken to hospital where he is detained in serious condition. Now police are appealing for the public's assistance in solving this incident. And the controversy continues between executives of the Police Staff Association and government officials. This time, PSA executives are disappointed with comments made by State Minister for National Security Keith Bell, who branded the association as a tool of the FNM. Andrew Knowles has more.
Police Staff Association Chairman Inspector Dwight Smith says he's lost in terms of why Minister of State for National Security Keith Bell would refer to the PSA as a political tool. Since being placed on 12-hour shifts, the PSA's push for more compensation for officers has been a bone of contention.
I am being told that we need to be disciplined because we are not taking the right process. We are following what the Staff Association Act states, that we would bring the concerns of officers by written or oral The written part is that we've already addressed. This letter is dated September 19th. This was sent to the Commissioner of Police as relates to if there would be compensation. The next letter we sent was to the Minister of National Security. We are going through those processes.
And almost a month later, Inspector Smith says the association has yet to be addressed. The PSA sent a letter to Prime Minister Perry Christie in his capacity as Minister of Finance. However, some believe by doing so, the association circumvented the authority of National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage. But Smith says they want to know what laws they are governed by. He also addressed the threats of legal action.
And all the letters stating to them whether or not we're going to get compensated. If we're not going to get compensated, tell me where we're at. So we can talk to the members at large and say, okay, we are not covered under this. We are not a part of the labor laws. We are not governed by it. If the authorities cannot do that for us, then we need to go to the legal areas. And that's what we talk about the court. They would probably be able to explain to us that we are not a part of the labor laws and we should not be on this plight.
Inspector Smith also responded to Bell's comments, suggesting that it's not the officers complaining, but rather PSA executives and their personal grievance.
I see that he's saying that most officers are not complaining. But one of the good things is about that, he's saying most, so obviously he's getting some complaints.
Now the PSA is inviting Minister Bell to come to the association and to sit down and discuss the matter instead of venting in the media. Andrew Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Industrial action heating up among staff of the national airline effective today. Workers at Bahamas Air are on work to rule after the Airport Airline and Allied Workers Union apparently exhausted all efforts to have a terminated employee reinstated. Union President Nerlene Harding says the union will file for strike action as early as Monday. Harding now feels the action taken against the airline hostess, who has reached the age of 60 and given Bahamas Air 36 years, could have wide implications.
This is one that we cannot let idly go by. It's going to affect too much workers, and I think employers, even in the private and public sector, look at what may seem to be a precedent of what an employer may set. And subtly we see this is one that management is trying to basically get away with, or to see how far they can push this envelope or where employees would go. But we are prepared as employees because our job is all you have. We're in an economy where the employment rate is escalating daily. Somebody who's worked and given dedicated service to an organization, you complied with what it was that was asked of you. And I think there's no employer who should be able to violate an industrial agreement and be able to say that they should be able to get away with it.
The National Congress of Trade Unions also backing the union. President Jennifer Isaacs Dotson says the action taken by Bahamas Air is not good for labor relations in the country.
We feel that this matter is bigger than even Bahamas Air, because it leaves all workers of the Bahamas open to being terminated without cause being given, to all workers being terminated prior to retirement. And it sets the groundwork really to say, and it makes us question as a trade union movement, why are we sitting to the table and negotiating industrial agreements if those industrial agreements are going to continue to be violated, not respected by the two parties that signed the industrial agreements. The industrial agreement between Bahamas Air and the union was signed by both parties, not just by the union. Therefore, the past precedent that happened with the other flight attendant was worked out. There was no termination. It followed a very clear process that's outlined in the industrial agreement. We begin to question now, why is it not being followed in this case?
Managing Director of Bahamas Air Henry Woods informed ZNS News earlier that despite what the union believes, the airline's decision was in accordance with the law. Efforts, meantime, will be mounted to promote a sound playing field in the gaming industry. Experts will converge in the capital for the historic Caribbean Gaming Forum. The event will be hosted by the London-based company GovRisk, and it is expected to promote gaming transparency and social responsibility in the local gaming industry. A GovRisk executive says the Bahamas has a record of judicious gaming regulation. Local stakeholders can learn from regional and international leaders on how to move the industry forward.
The people who are attending the forum from across the region as delegates are from the regulatory side, so that's gaming regulators, like here we have the Gaming Board and other government departments who are related to that as well. There's quite a few different key stakeholders. And then the gaming operators as well, the casinos, the surveillance and security representatives from those casinos, other industries that supply the gaming industry, and various other companies like that.
Gaming is currently a hot-button issue in the country, and the Gaming Forum also comes as the government moves to enact gaming legislation. Meantime, GovRIS Executive Cleo Pappas is encouraging all stakeholders to attend the forum.
The way to look at this is how it can be developed in a socially responsible way, in a transparent way, while at the same time recognizing that this is going to be a very big source of revenue for the respective jurisdiction that has a gaming industry. So this forum will allow those participants to see exactly, by tapping into the experience of the experts that, for example, have set up the regulatory bodies in New Zealand or in Cyprus or in other parts of the world. They have been along this path and they know what fail-safe measures they can put in place and what pitfalls lie ahead, because there are downsides, as there is to any activity.
Well, 9 months from the implementation of the proposed value-added tax, and many feel there are still more questions than answers. However, State Minister for Finance Michael Alquita says discussions to finalize draft VAT legislation is currently underway. In fact, the legislation will reportedly be ready in 2 weeks. But the minister says the bottom line is that efforts will be made to minimize the overall impact on the new VAT on the cost of living for the average Bahamian.
For example, it's not that, okay, you go and buy a loaf of bread now, VAT is on top of the bread, or you go and buy a bag of rice, it's on top of the rice, or a tin of cream, or cooking oil, or stuff. So that's a list that we have developed, and that would be published. And we expect that during the consultation process, we will be able to refine that list. We'd also like to say things like education. It's not going to be on school fees. It's not going to be on your rent. Not going to be on your doctor trip. It's not going to be on the daycare center. Just a number of things, and all of these will be published very shortly.
Government issued a white paper on tax reform designed to serve as the basis of extensive public discussions and consultations as it relates to broadening the tax base to include both goods and services. The proposal is to introduce VAT at a rate of 15%.
We looked at what the revenue needs of the government are, and how soon we want to achieve this, and some of the offsets that we're proposing. We thought the rate was not unreasonable. It's comparable to a lot of rates in the region, but again, it's a very good question that we have run some scenarios, and based on, X percent, Y%, what you get, etc. And so at the end of the process, we'll be able to tell you whether we've decided to begin there, begin lower. Bottom line is VAT would not be applicable on most what we call basic food items, your bread basket items. So for example, that individual who is making that, let's say, minimum wage, and their consumption patterns are a particular way. For example, they go to the food store, they buy certain things. We are trying as best we can to make sure that basket is exempt, so that we minimize as much as we can the impact. So for example,
well, straight ahead, what you should know if you're building a home.